Ray, not his real name, says he is prepared to speak out.
I really think that the government's policy against the COVID is too strict and it's violating our rights.
Do you think people are afraid? Are you afraid?
I'm not afraid. Yes, there are people who are afraid.
And the Labour Party is calling for a universal broadcasting charge to be levied on all households. Taoiseach Micheál Martin has said he supports a similar model to replace the TV licence fee. It would see all households liable regardless of whether they own a television. Labour TD Duncan Smith says it's important to secure funding for public service broadcasting.
For me, good quality public sector broadcasting is fundamental for a functioning democracy. Whether you engage with that broadcasting or not, it's still vitally important that it's there. And we need to have a model that doesn't just sustain what's there, but actually improves and increases the scope of public sector broadcasting across local media and across other forms of media.
And that's it for now. More in an hour.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Need a gift for Chris Kindle? Ryanair gift cards are the perfect gift.
Cold and dry tonight with clear spells. Temperatures dropping to between -1 and +3 degrees with some mist and fog developing. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
All you need for Christmas.
News Talk's Christmas cash machine.
Well, somebody missed the call again today, which means roll over to start the week. If you've entered since 7 a.m. Monday, you're still in the competition, but you must know the new number, which is 50,893 euro. 34 cents. Text play to 57557. Get your entry in by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and then across the Go Loud network of stations, Barry Dunn will make the call. If your phone rings, answer within 5 rings, the exact amount in euro and cents, and the cash is yours. So the new amount, 50,893 euro 34 cents. Over 18s only, text cost €2.50, and you're paying across the Go Loud network of stations. Terms and conditions on newstalk.com.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch Premier League, Women's Super League, EFL, Scottish Premiership and much more. Live on Sky Sports.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then.
What about your start to the game? It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Welcome along. Here we are, World Cup. Halfway stage, just about to go halfway stage. Whenever it's full time, it is full time between Portugal and Uruguay, so it's just past the halfway stage in the World Cup. Games played on day 8. 2-0 win for Portugal. Bruno Fernandes with both goals, despite Ronaldo initially thinking he may have had more than a hand in the first, but it was Fernandes' cross. Ronaldo didn't quite get ahead on the ball, so 2-0 win for Portugal. Uruguay in big trouble, you would think, for this brilliant generation. That could be that, really, on the international stage. South Korea 2, Ghana 3 from earlier on in Group H. So Ghana in very promising shape ahead of their final game against Uruguay. And then Group G, we had a thriller earlier on. Cameroon 3, Serbia 3. And of course Brazil via Casemiro volley 1-0 winners against Switzerland. Just mentioning ahead of the games tomorrow. We will, by the way, on Brazil talk to Tim Vickery later on in the hour. Tomorrow, as well as Wales against England, there is USA against Iran. Not the best friends, obviously, down the years. No formal diplomatic relations since 1980. There is a fairly fraught dynamic, and things have ratcheted up this afternoon. So it stems, I think, from US Twitter feed. They showed a picture of the group standings, and when it came to the Iranian flag, they had the horizontal green, white and red, but they had removed the Islamic Republic emblem. They'd just taken that off the flag. They said in support of the protesters in Iran. Iranian government, as you might imagine, did not take this well. They called on FIFA to expel USA from the tournament, which hasn't happened. The US coach, Greg Berhalter, he tried to apply some coolant to the situation in his media dealings. He was saying, well, look, neither I nor the players had any knowledge of this. There's a social media team. We look after the football. No offence intended, etc. Carlos Queiroz turned from Jurgen Klinsmann to the US, and I guess in his press conference he was talking about how, well, you're not so perfect either. So he said when it comes to human rights, we've solidarity with causes all over the world, whoever they are. If you talk human rights, well, there's racism. There are kids dying at schools from shooting. We have solidarity with all. So that was Queiroz's take on the US. And then we headed to the US press conference. So we had, once again, Berhalter, the US coach, and we had the US captain, Tyler Adams. And so at a certain stage, Adams had been expressing support of some kind or other for the Iranian protesters. And the Iranian press corps, they took Adams and Berhalter to task on several issues. So, for instance, just to give you a flavour at this rather striking press conference, have a listen.
You say you support the Iranian people, but you're pronouncing our country's name wrong. Our country is named Iran, not Iran. Please, once and for all, let's get this clear. Second of all, are you okay to be representing a country that has so much discrimination against black people in its own borders? And we saw the Black Lives Matter movement over the past few years.
My apologies on the mispronunciation of your country. That being said, there's discrimination everywhere you go. One thing that I've learned, especially from living abroad in the past years and having to fit in different cultures, is that in the U.S. we're continuing to make progress every single day. I grew up in a white family with obviously an African American heritage and background as well. So I had a little bit of different cultures, and I was very, very easily able to assimilate in different cultures. So not everyone has that ease and the ability to do that, and obviously it takes longer to understand, and through education I think it's super important, like you just educated me now on the pronunciation of your country. So it's a process. I think as long as you see progress, that's the most important thing.
So Tyler Adams there pretty deftly handling a tricky-ish situation, but it just kept going on in that vein. For instance, the restrictive visa situation in the States. Berhalter, the coach, was asked about that, and he said, look, I'm not an expert in our visa situation. And another question, for instance, the last one, just to give you a flavour, somebody said, sport is something that should bring nations closer together, ... So why is it you haven't asked your government to take away its military fleet from the Persian Gulf? This was the nature of the press conference conversation. Pat Nevin with us, evening.
Good evening, Joe. How are you doing? I hope you've got a good enough link to me here. It's not the best situation, but I think we can hopefully hear each other.
We can. You're coming across very well. Kevin Kilban talked to us from a metro earlier on, so you're positively perfect by comparison.
Yeah. We've just sat and watched the last game here. You mentioned the game before, the 3-3 game. I was at that game today, and it was brilliant. And it just kind of summed up what this World Cup is like. It's rotten being a pundit. You have no idea what's going to happen next. It's all over the place. I was convinced when Serbia scored the third goal today, that was it, game over, finished, no chance at all. And then with 10 minutes to go, I'm thinking, Serbia are going to lose this. So it's been like that all the way through the tournament. So in terms of the football, it's been great. However, there's one or two other things going on, as we hear from the Iranians and the Americans.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be worth tuning in for tomorrow. We'll come to that off-field stuff maybe in due course. On Cameroon 3, Serbia 3 and these other games which have been difficult to predict, why do you think we've had this kind of evening out of standards across these World Cup teams?
Excuse me. Well, number one, certainly being in the middle of European seasons will have some effect. A lot of players do. When you get tired, you make mistakes. It's a wee bit harder to play at a high tempo. And some of the teams that have had those great results, such as Japanese, and I know there's quite a few of them in Germany, the Saudi Arabians, etc., they've been able to play at an incredibly high pace. Morocco, another one where they beat Belgium. And that can get you a long way. That can get you a very, very long way. So I was expecting one or two slight upsets, but it's been even more than I suspected. The other thing is, we're in the Middle East here. And it's different. It's a home tournament for the North African countries and certainly the Middle Eastern countries as well. When I'm in the stadium, I was in the stadium the other day I was doing the Iran versus Wales game. And honestly, complete and utter home game. Total home game. Oh, sorry, Saudi Arabia. I mean, total and utter home game. It was phenomenal. Actually, there are too many games at the moment. You get mixed up with them all. It was Wales and Iran, wasn't it? And the Iranians were absolutely brilliant, but it wasn't hard to be brilliant, although all they're going through just now. But the support behind them was incredible. But you have to keep your eyes out on everything, right? First of all, they stunk the place out against England, but understandably, because I think the players were under a lot of pressure. And then when I was watching the game, and I know how passionate the Iranian fans are. I mean, I was at the last Iran versus USA game in the World Cup. I was at the last one. And I know how passionate they are. And as the game was kicking off, the place was empty. There was no Iranians in the stadium. And then 5 minutes in the game, it was utterly mobbed. And it took me a few minutes to figure out what was going on. And of course, the Iranians wouldn't go in with their own national anthem playing in case they were spotted by, obviously, the kind of secret police that are in there, or spotted on camera not singing. So there's all sorts of things going on there. But when they came in, they made it sound like a home game. And that makes a difference. It absolutely makes a difference.
How are you finding the experience out there generally?
Maybe unsurprisingly, not like we were told it was going to be. But then it's exactly what I found when I went to Brazil, exactly what I found in Russia, and it's exactly what we found when I've got here. Look, we know the background, we know the problems. It's a cultural thing, but it's a religious thing as well that people are complaining about. It's certainly a governmental thing. You could go around in circles forever talking about the rights and wrongs of every regime in the world. But as you walk around this place, before you came, you thought there'd be secret police walking about pointing at people not having shorts below their knees and asking women to cover up and all the rest of it. Nobody bats an eyelid. Absolutely nobody bats an eyelid. And it doesn't feel like they're doing it especially for this moment. When I meet some of the expats, I meet quite a lot of the expats around here, and they just say they can't believe what people, in the West have been told about what this country is like just to move around normally. And it feels incredibly safe. Look, I'm saying all this just now because we take for granted the downsides, right? We take for granted. That's a given and it's accepted, right? But when you go to any country, you have a look at their culture, you understand what has to be accepted or what you disagree with. And what I've seen is unbelievable amounts of cultures, as ever, get together and actually doing very well. It's the fans are brilliant together. It's where it goes beyond the fans, I guess. Well, the fans and the players are generally been all right, but the fans particularly from every single country generally have been fantastic together. It's been, I have to admit, a pleasure.
Good. And are you seeing lots of empty seats at the games you're covering, and what's the explanation you're hearing?
There have been quite a few empty seats at a number of the games, and this is my 6th World Cup, and that has been the case at every single World Cup I've ever been to. Okay. Not every game sells out, and that is just the way it is. I mean, a lot of the games are here are very early here, and it's working days, etc. I have to say, when I turned up for the opening game, I thought this feels plastic. This does not feel like real football. But that was an opening ceremony, and I was trying to tell myself, look, opening ceremonies are always like that. Some of the atmospheres at some of the games I've been to have been among the best atmospheres I've been to for years. They've been amazing. I mentioned the fact that the game with Poland and Saudi Arabia, I was at that one as well, and that was phenomenal. The Cameroon versus Serbia one, it wasn't full, but there was nothing wrong with the atmosphere. And because some of these stadiums are pretty big, and you won't always get. I mean, you don't always get 40, 50,000 every single game that you ever put on anywhere. If it sounds like I'm making an excuse for them, I'm not. What I'm doing is telling you what it's like and what it has been like at previous World Cups. And again, it's a very, very small country, but the amount of people that have got here and are getting transported around the place, they've actually organised pretty well. There are teething problems. There's things that have gone wrong. Certainly, the huge own goals that they've come up with, particularly, the changing the drinking ban at the last minute and all that sort of stuff. And really silly own goals. And also the whole thing about the armbands was such a mistake by the Qataris, because had they just ignored it, it would have gone away really quickly. But because they didn't, massive amount of publicity, and that's shooting themselves in the foot for that one. But, when that's gone behind, I'll tell you a story. I was down shopping the other day there, and a guy came up to me in the queue and he just said, you work for media? Yeah. Which one? BBC. And he goes, please tell the people we are not like that. We are not like what you are saying. We read what was being said about us. It's not like us. And I said, well, are you Qatari? He goes, no. I've just lived here for 5 or 6 years. I am a migrant worker. And he seems to have a fairly well-to-do one. He just said, look, there are problems in this country, but it isn't the way it's been portrayed. But I've only been here 8 or 9 days. I'm keeping my eyes open as much as I possibly can to see if anything else is questionable that's going on. But, as a football tournament, it's kind of hard to find fault with the actual football and the organisation of it. All the other stuff, the political stuff, I think from now to eternity, you're never going to get one without problems anymore.
What are you making of the general standard of football?
When I go to these games, I can own up because I'm talking. It's just you and me talking, and one or two people listening, right? The games I get sent to are the kind of the others, if you know what I mean.
You're a little off Broadway, are you?
Yeah, I'm certainly doing the other ones, and I've always kind of done that, and I love it because I think a lot of people like to be at the big games with the big names and the rest of it. They are not always the best games. I mean, you see two different cultures and two different styles coming together. That's sometimes when it can be the most amazing. And one of my favourite things of any World Cup, and it's always the case, and it's been the case this time, is, I do a show for BBC World Service called World Football. So I study world football quite a lot. But I'm still finding players in every game I don't know. And I love them. I really love them. I should know more, and my apologies for my ignorance, but I'd never seen the striker for Iran, Aznun. And what a player he is, by the way. He's playing most of his career in Russia. Jeez, I come and watch that guy every single week. And it's just all the way through it. It's just every team you watch. And yeah, we all know that Gavi and Pedri are among the most interesting, and I got to see them in one game as well. And they will in time become great players. But I'm really, really intrigued to see all the other players that otherwise you wouldn't necessarily have seen, and then realised, wow, the quality is very good in some other countries and getting much, much closer. And
then the boring question, I suppose, of the big boys and the big teams and the usual suspects, is anyone standing out to you?
Well, it's just the three teams have got 6 points now after having played all the games, and it is France, it is Brazil, and tonight obviously Portugal as well. I started with France long before the tournament. They've lost a whole bunch of players, but I'm still with France. They just seem a wee bit less flaky than everyone else. The others, Brazil, I heard in one of the games I was watching today, and the commentator said that Brazil still haven't had a shot against them on target yet, which is saying something. They're quite good. They know how to defend. They know how to hold the ball. So you're not writing any of these teams off at all. But it wouldn't be great if one of the unexpected teams actually got all the way to something like a semi-final. And we've been waiting for years and years, or I've been waiting for years and years for one of the African teams to do it. It doesn't look like it's the African teams this time. Well, it could be the African teams, but it could be more likely to be North Africa, which they look to themselves as, Arab countries, like Morocco particularly. They might be the ones that, and their standard. And that's the other thing that gets you. Have you noticed this? So I'm going to change the subject completely here, just for a second. The amount of players that turned up, and you think, why were you not doing that before? I thought Ronaldo was great tonight, by the way. The effort, and we had a chat before about, Ronaldo not putting the effort in week out for Manchester United. But I've always thought, you do it for Portugal. By the way, put it in tonight for Portugal. As someone who follows Chelsea closely, Hakim Ziyech, has he got a twin brother that plays for Chelsea? And another one that plays, and there are quite a number of players that, and I think there is a part of it that there are certain players around the world that it makes sure they're in perfect nick by the time they get to a World Cup, and it absolutely shows.
Yeah. Mbappe has turned up in extraordinary shape, and his numbers are just insane already. 23 years of age, and he has 30 goals for France. So he scored his 7th World Cup goal thus far. So only Mbappe and Pele have scored 7 World Cup goals before the age of 25. Like Messi has 8, and he's played 21 odd World Cup games, whereas Mbappe 7 World Cup goals, and I suspect it won't be his last this tournament somehow. He just looks phenomenal. We were making the point earlier, just chatting amongst ourselves, that because PSG aren't as front and centre in our lives, and because Erling Haaland has been the big talking point of the early weeks of the season, I was kind of forgetting a touch about just how awesome Mbappe is, and even on the basis of these 2 games, thinking to myself, well, Erling Haaland is maybe the second best player in the world, but I think in Mbappe we're seeing the best. He looks incredible.
He is incredible. One of the things to remember about, certainly international football, sometimes you actually don't play against the best players.
Sure.
With the best will in the world, the Australian defenders aren't the best defenders in the world, and maybe neither are the Tunisian ones, and you have to take that into account. But you've said all the names there. He's right up there. And when you see him on the ball now and the danger that he can cause, he's a fabulous player, but take all that away and just think about his pace, and it's just, what? It's burning up the turf and nobody can get near him. But he seems to be, on it as well. There's been times when you've looked at him and he's, playing for PSG, and you've got the big names, and they've always had big names around him. And you can see the nose slightly out of joint, that he wasn't the main man. Whereas now, maybe even Benzema not being there, actually, in a weird way, might help him. Because they're all looking to him now. You be the main man. You be the guy that delivers most of what we want. There's all great players around him. There are fabulous players around him. And there's lots of reasons why I think, the French are still the favourites for me. But there's no more reason than that he is off the scale just now. And if he can keep himself fit, it's very hard to see many people stopping him. Yeah, I agree with you completely. He's putting a marker down. It could be his World Cup.
And it's interesting how over the years club football has really come to the fore and international football is almost dismissed a touch now. Because when I compare Mbappe to Pelé, we're talking about Pelé winning in 58 and 62 and then 70 and 3 World Cups, and his iconic status, as well as the 1,000 club goals and everything, but his iconic status is built on his international career. That doesn't feel as to the fore now when we talk about players. But if Mbappe wins this World Cup at 23, having won the other one at the age of 19, and maybe adds a third somewhere along the line, that eclipses anything he does at club level, no?
I would argue that it does, but I think you probably need both of them now because of just the way the game is looked at. Certainly, international football had a different, bigger kind of kudos for a long time. But there's no doubt in my mind the Messi effect, the fact that he's never won it, and everyone keeps looking back and say, "Wow, Maradona won it," and he almost won it on his own. So I think these top players look at that and think, I need to do it. I need to win it if I am to be looked upon not just in the pantheon of greats of my time, but the greats of all time. And hence why Ronaldo's turned up, and he won't be thinking he's second best and incapable. And this time he's got a right good team behind him and real strength and depth behind him. But yeah, Mbappe, it's one of those players, when you're an ex-player, when you're playing, you think, I'd play against anyone, I'd try against anyone. And then you look at someone like him and you think, nah, I don't know if I'd fancy that. No. I would just knock the ball by you. Unless I've got a motorbike, I don't think I'm going to catch him. So he's spectacular. He'll come in for some hits and come in some rough play eventually. And that's the other thing in the end that's going to make the big decision about this World Cup more than maybe any other. Strength and depth of squad is going to be gigantic, because when you look at the fact that the French are not going to have to play all their main players in the next game, that is an enormous help to them. That's a staggering help to them. I was supposed to be doing the France-Tunisia game in the next round, but they've moved me on to the other one because actually it's got more riding on it. And I was thinking, I miss seeing Mbappe in the flesh. Actually, he probably won't play. No. Let's be fair about it. And he'll be rested and he'll be flying by the round of 16.
Interesting that when we were asking of the big boys who's caught your eye, England wasn't exactly rolling off your tongue. So what's your read on where they are? Because against Iran, and you've rightly mentioned the Iranian players might not have been in a great headspace for that game, but against Iran they did look genuinely impressive.
They did, and I was hugely impressed with them, and the fact that they went for that back four and they had to attack-minded players out. I'm like everybody else in the planet. Why are you not playing Foden? I just don't get it, because probably when you're trying to break down defences, I don't know if there's a better player in England, an Englishman, than him just now. His time will come. Gareth Southgate actually said that today. But the fact that coming into the World Cup, they were so dull. And, you can't actually turn it off and on as easily as that. And even though they did play really well and they were lively and were quick and were sharp and everything was positive about them against Iran, you have to take it into consideration what those players were going through. I'm not too sure I've known a group of players having to go through more than those Iranian players were going through for that game. So I would take a bit off. And then when I did get to see Iran playing against Wales, that's what made me think it's two different teams. I would be interested. And I got a wee bit stickless. I said this in the radio over here. I said, but I'd love to see an England versus Iran game now, to see what it was like now that they are, seem to have got their heads in a slightly better place. And I would be interested in seeing that. England might still win, but it wouldn't be 6-2.
No, because the US were pretty comfortable in the main.
Yeah, and that was the surprise. US are okay. They're not a brilliant team. They're not a terrible team. They're just kind of okay. And the absolute expectation was England to have plenty to get by the US. And I have to say, I was surprised that England were so, once again, quite dull against them. And a number of the players that turned up for the first game, when it was tighter against a group of, let's be fair, very, very strong, very, very fit, pretty well organised players, they didn't have any answers at all. And no, they were impressive. And when you compare that with the Brazil, with the French, I think England are in the group below that, without a doubt. I don't think they're in that group.
I presume you watched Spain-Germany last night. There is talk about this Busquets, Pedri, Gavi midfield as being every bit as impressive potentially as the great trio that came before them. Busquets obviously part of both. So you referenced them as well as being pretty impressive. Where are Spain short when it comes to going really, really deep in this tournament? Because something does feel just off. I know up front is generally pointed to as the issue.
I think that's the easy issue to point to, and it may well be part of it. But I'm not sure it's the entire issue. I do love what I'm seeing from Gavi and Pedri. Busquets is not going to be there forever, but I like what I'm seeing there, and they are trying to rebuild a new dynasty, and it's definitely in a mirror of the previous dynasty. Excuse me. But they're not there yet. I mean, they're absolutely not there yet. They're very, very young. And it showed against the Germans that they weren't able to dominate possession for the vast majority of the game. And the Germans have been no great shakes themselves, but they were up for that game, and just their robust play and their physicality was enough to eventually put the Spanish in the back foot. When that previous great Spanish team were at their best, kind of nobody was touching them really. They were so far ahead and they were so good at it. So it takes a while. Can't expect it to happen overnight. And before the tournament, I thought, well, actually, it's a tournament too early for them, but they'll grow into it. After the first game, I thought, oh, God, I could be proved wrong there. And I might still be proved wrong, but I suspect it is just one tournament too early for some of those young players.
Okay. So what's in the menu tomorrow? Where are you?
Well, I don't know if you've probably noticed, I'm coughing quite a bit, right? It's this weird thing going on. Everybody around here's coughing, right? And I don't think it's COVID, right? You live your life in air conditioning. So you're coughing all the time. And the fact that I've now done 6 games in 6 days, I have to tell you, I'm having a day off tomorrow. With one possible caveat. I am trying my best to get a ticket in with the fans for the Iran versus USA game. And if I can be there, I don't care where I am. I want to be in there and I want to find it. So I'm having a day off tomorrow, unless I can get a ticket for that game, which I have a suspicion I might just get.
Yeah, great. Are the air-conditioned stadiums working a treat? Are they cool?
Yeah. It's kind of weird. It's the strangest thing when you're outside and you're boiling. I mean, really boiling. You walk in, obviously indoors is cool, and then you sit up in the commentary positions. We're quite high up away from the field. It's freezing, honestly. So the air conditioning is right behind you. It comes through these little holes, and it's all the way through the stadium. And I have to say, I burst out laughing the other day when they're doing the adverts all around Qatar just now, and they're saying, the world's first ever carbon neutral World Cup. Honestly, I just about spat out my tea when I write 2 chances.
Well,
but it seems to be working for them.
God, mate, I mean, incredible. Like it's just extraordinary.
It's incredible. But the thing is, with this country, nothing. It's a wee bit like it's like Arabian Disneyland. That's what it's like.
Yeah.
You know, the buildings are unbelievable, but they're only a few years old, and even the ancient ones are only 6 or 7 years old. They're made to look ancient. Is Arabian Disneyland, and they can do just about anything with the money they've got. In some of the stadiums, I've never seen anything like them. Honestly, it's just extraordinary. the way they look, and apparently they're taking most of them back down again when they're finished. I think the phrase "money is no object" is the case, and if they say they'll make a stadium air conditioned, they'll do it, and they have.
Well, on the and we'll finish on this point on the carbon footprint. There's the Sunday Business Post newspaper over here yesterday. Matt Cooper, a broadcaster and journalist over here, had a brilliant piece, and there aren't enough of these pieces about the carbon footprint of this tournament. And in it, there was an expert from a university in the UK who'd been looking very closely at the situation. And the line which jumped out, instead of just giving numbers and 10 million tonnes and all that kind of business, the line which jumped out is that this World Cup has the largest carbon footprint of any event in human history outside of war.
That doesn't shock me.
Yeah.
I have to say.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone who's getting, every single group of fans just about who's getting here are flying over in, massive jets. Every single place, every single house, every single underground, they've built the whole system of metros, which is beautiful, but the whole thing is of a scale that's unthinkable to actually do in the West now. So the concept of it's carbon neutral is really, really ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, because you have to take into account everything that has been built to prep for it as well. But on the other hand, had they not done it right, everyone would have been complaining that you're not capable of putting on a World Cup. So I think that with the Qataris, they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't once again.
Pat Nevin, we'll talk again. Thanks so much.
See you then. Take care.
Cheers. Pat Nevin with us live from Qatar. Our football show coverage brought to you by Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. Short ad break. Tim Vickery will join us next. Brazil obviously in action this evening.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national football team.
This is News Talk. News Talk Breakfast.
It seems Ireland is building too many large detached houses.
All over Dublin there are lovely old period terraces, Victorian ones, Georgian ones, all of that. And I know some modern houses are being built in kind of duplex terraces and stuff like that. But I think it's a really good idea, and I also happen to think it's quite an attractive idea.
News Talk Breakfast with Ciara Kelly and Shane Coleman.
In association with AIR.
Weekday mornings at 7 on News Talk.
Eurocycles Euro Baby, come on down lads, the crack is mighty. The Eurocycles Euro Baby prices can't be bet. For bicycles and things with wheels and lots for
Eurocycles Euro Baby Black Friday stock clearance sale at EurocyclesEurobaby.com and Eurocycles Euro Baby Long Mile Road and Swords. Sale extended. Must end Sunday.
The Eurocycles Euro Baby prices can't be bet. For bicycles and things with wheels and lots for babies, yeah. See our product range and buy online at EurocyclesEurobaby.com.
This Cyber Monday, it's time to grab some great deals with Aer Lingus. With €100 off round-trip fares to incredible North American cities, you'll be spoiled for choice on where to go. Enjoy US pre-clearance before you board and fly direct to amazing destinations like New York, Miami, LA, Seattle and more. Book now and grab your €100 discount today at airlingus.com. Hurry, sail ends midnight Tuesday. T's and C's apply. Travel 1st of January to 28th of March 2023.
Power your way through the working day on Air Business Broadband with seamless connectivity and reliability from just $44.99 a month. Switch today and get €100 off your unlimited fibre broadband bill from Ireland's #1 business broadband provider. For more, visit air.ie/business, go in store or call 1-800-207-407. Air. Let's make possible. Subject to availability. Offers available to new Air Business Broadband customers. Pricing excludes VAT. For full terms, see air.ie/business.
For all those who like being together. Let's go, everyone. And leave no one behind. With 7 modular seats and flexible finance options from only €7.77 per day, there's room for everyone in the new Dacia Jogger. Overall winner at the AA Ireland Car Awards 2022. Not bad for a first 10 years in Ireland. Bigger, cooler Jogger. Finance is made under hire purchase. Terms and conditions apply. 39 payments drawn down monthly, subject to lending criteria. See dacia.ie.
If you are a supplier of agriculture or food products, you need to know about the Unfair Trading Practices regulations. The regulations provide legal protection against 16 unfair trading practices, such as unilateral contract changes or late payments. The Unfair Trading Practices Enforcement Authority has been established to enforce these regulations. If you have been subjected to an unfair trading practice, you can contact the authority about your complaint in confidence. Know your rights. Visit utp.gov.ie. Brought to you by the Government of Ireland.
For great nights in, choose Centra. Enjoy a feast of football on TV and choose great big savings too. Like mix and match on selected chocolates, soft drinks and crisps sharing bags, any 3 for €4. Plus Carlsberg 12-can pack, only €20.36. Enjoy great nights in for the football with Centra. Centra. Live every day. Enjoy cold sensibly.
Guaranteed Irish business members continue to sustain jobs and communities across Ireland.
Me Too You is the Irish-owned multi-store gift card, accepted in over 7,000 retailers nationwide and exclusively in Smith's Toys, Applegreen and McGurk's Golf. It's also the gift card of choice for many of Ireland's best-known employers, who can now gift up to €1,000 tax-free to employees. So remember me2u.ie when rewarding staff this year. Guaranteed Irish. Altogether better.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, get more of the sports you love on Sports Extra with BT Sport and Premier Sports.
This is News Talk.
You're welcome back. Tim Vickery is there. Hello.
Hello. Joe Molloy, you're looking a little bit dishevelled, as I probably am looking and feeling a bit dishevelled. This business of 4 games, one after the other, it's got to stop. It can't go on, thankfully. It won't go on anymore. It's been a lot, and it's a lot to process.
When am I meant to shave? Honestly.
No, I can't live without that. I can't live without. But I am mauling myself. There's blood all over the place as I do it, blearily eyed of a morning, because 7 o'clock kickoff the first game, our time.
Oh yeah, it's a very nice genteel 10 a.m. for us. Perfect.
Amateurs.
So, Brazil. Richarlison did his thing in game 1, which was amazing. I mean, what a goal. It was one of the great World Cup goals instantly. And then against the Swiss this evening, if people missed the game, I kept one eye on it. I was kind of prepping for the show here as well, but they seemed not to create a huge amount. There was a Vinicius goal, which was ruled offside. And then the unlikely candidate that was Casemiro with an amazing strike.
Yeah, this is obviously a Brazil side without Neymar. And whatever you think about him, they're not the same without him. I think they've stacked the squad full of maybe too many wingers. And the difference with Neymar is he operates between the lines and he helps bring the wingers into the game. So they're much. And also the side is set up for him to such an extent that it can be a little bit rigid with him getting total freedom. So there was always the question of how they were going to replace him and what they did. They were always going to bring Fregi back for this game. They got much more respect for the Swiss than for Serbia. So they just moved Lucas Paquetá forward into Neymar's slot. They kind of suspected that it wouldn't work. And at halftime, they abandoned that and brought on Rodrigo of Real Madrid, who they see as the future. They were struggling to break the Swiss down, and the Swiss were much more of a test than Serbia. The Swiss were reasonably comfortable in defence and with the capacity to come forward as a block. Great thing for Brazil. 2 games, not a single shot on target.
Yeah.
Alisson hasn't done anything really, so that they're looking very, very defensively solid. But to break the Swiss down, they were obviously going to need players coming from behind, coming from the back. I mean, they tried towards the end of the first half. There was an attempt to get Alexandro, the left back, into the attacking line, and in the end, it was a holding midfielder, Casemiro, who blasted a very, very good finish and finally broke the Swiss resistance. Works well, I think, for Brazil. They had to box for their openings. Some of their warm-up games, they were scoring with the first chance, and the game was done by half-time, which was not really much use to Man, Beast, nor Chichi. So I think especially after winning the first game, 3 points already in the bag, they could afford to suffer a little bit, working out how to break down a Swiss side who are very, very efficient. So I think Brazil come out of this with more pluses, certainly many more pluses than minuses. The 2 big pluses are that defensive solidity, and also these 2 games are the ones in which Vinicius Jr. has consolidated himself as a Brazil player. That hadn't really happened before. He struggled a little bit to find his feet for Brazil. He'd been far less effective up until now than Rafinha on the other wing. But in these 2 games, he's been extremely sharp. So they've now got him. He is now a consolidated international star. And that bodes well for the serious rounds.
Yes, and his finish before he knew he was offside was calmness personified. It was glorious. I must confess, really grudgingly, I watched the first game and I did think Neymar's been very good here and making things happen. And I did acknowledge grudgingly his loss this evening. So he looks like he's pitched up in good shape.
Well, we don't know when he's going to come back. We don't know. And the idea was...
Sorry. He pitched up in good shape. I don't know what shape he's in now, but he certainly arrived in good shape, yeah.
Yes. Many people in Brazil were saying that the team would be better without him. I think they were conflating personal and especially political dislike of him with his abilities as a footballer. But that thing between the lines, I mean, you do wish, and I thought at the time they'd made a mistake not taking Roberto Firmino, because I think he's the best that they've got now to operate there between the lines. And if football had 4 wings, Brazil would be great. You know, they've got more wingers than they know what to do with. But it's that combination between the lines that he gives them, and the wingers don't. You got to supply the wingers. So a good morale booster, and obviously in the Cameroon game they can have a look at things now. They can experiment a little bit. First place in the group is almost a guarantee. So yes, I mean it's been a very good 8 days for them.
Yeah, there was of course hysteria around Neymar when he was injured 8 years ago now. What's the general sense? Is he going to be okay for knockout stages or?
Don't know. And he's having physiotherapy round the clock. I wonder. And obviously the comparison that people roll out is with Pelé in '62 when Pelé was injured in the second game. There was always the hope, we're going to get him back. And they never did. They won the World Cup without him. So we don't know. It looks like the right back Danilo is probably further down the line than Neymar. So these are World Cups. You play with what you've got. They may not have him going into the first game of the knockout stage, and it's strange to think of him as this, but he's the uncle of the Brazil attack these days. Time for the nephews to step up. They did all right today. They're going to have to keep doing it.
How is it they've managed, well, I guess it's not unconnected to the opposition, of course, but that they've managed to go this far without conceding effectively a chance? Because the worry a lot of people had in advance of the tournament was that Casemiro would be left to put out fires left, right and centre. And so obviously it is more of a team effort here. Yeah, that was a doubt voiced, and this is the weakness of World Cup punditry. People who haven't seen the teams. Yeah. You know, just judging it like a beauty parade, judging it by the names. They've looked defensively solid pretty much all through. And it's a coach who likes that. And why not? Going into this tournament, I was putting Brazil above Argentina for exactly that reason. And Argentina going into the tournament weren't conceding, but they always looked like conceding. So often they were defending at full strength. And there were great saves from the goalkeeper or something. Brazil, so many of their games recently, the keeper could take a deck chair out. Really haven't been extended. Of course, that leaves the question hanging. At some point, they will be extended. How do they react? And these are the fabulous questions that you have in a World Cup campaign. Because, there are some sides out there, they come up against Mbappe in full flight. What on earth do you do then? What happens then? I can't wait. Bring it on. Marcela Moura-Irahu was on with us in advance of the tournament, and she did warn me that Argentina were not as perfect as unbeaten in 36 and Copa America champions might suggest. I mean, she wasn't kidding. That game against Mexico was one of the most painful experiences as a viewer in quite some time. So you've seen this Argentina team a lot. I presume they have more flow in their game. Because are they just overwrought by the whole World Cup experience?
No, two things have happened. One, the level is teams are prepared. Teams that I look at them, and teams have gone out to. And the Saudis did this brilliantly. It was a fantastic game from the Saudis, and the Saudis took huge risks and the game could have gone away with them by half-time. But with that high defensive line, they're putting pressure on Argentina in midfield, because what Argentina want to do is pass the ball around the midfield and just drag the opposition about and wait for the moment to slip the decisive pass. Well, the Saudis said, we ain't going to let you do it. We're going to press right up high. And the Saudis were rewarded, I think, for their boldness. Mexico did something much, much more conservative, back three and then three. And Mexico, what on earth has happened to those exciting wingers of 4 years ago? So that's one thing. Opponents have looked at, how are we going to neutralise this? The other is Argentina aren't executing the idea as well as they have been. First, they lost Lo Celso. Now, that midfield trio, it was Paredes to pass the ball out, De Paul to give thrust, and Lo Celso with his subtle little passes to bring Messi into the game.
Right.
So when he was injured, the coach said, that's a problem. We don't have a replacement for him. So they tried Alejandro Gomez the first game. They tried Alexis McAllister in the second game. Neither really worked. But the second game, the coach, Paredes is not fully fit, so they replaced him. And the coach took, I think, a very, very defensive choice. And it was a baffling choice for me. The holding midfielder was Guido Rodriguez. Now, Guido Rodriguez, tall, defensive midfielder, bring him on when you're protecting a lead. But when you're trying to break down the opposition, he just doesn't have it. His passing isn't there. And you could see in the second half, Messi was getting increasingly frustrated with him. Because the rhythm of a passing team, the rhythm has to come from the back. It's the players from the back who are moving forward, committing the opposition, and then giving the pass to the more creative players in space, where with space and momentum. They took off after around an hour. They took off Guido Rodriguez and brought on Enzo Fernandez. Different game. Now, Enzo Fernandez is getting a lot of credit for that wonderful second goal against Mexico. Terrific. More important was the first goal, where it's a lovely little, clever little ball from Di Maria to Messi, and then the goal from Messi. But who gives the ball to Di Maria? It's Enzo Fernandez in that position, higher up the field. He's committed the opposition. He's created space, and suddenly there's a rhythm of passing going on. So I think he stays in the team. I will be absolutely amazed if Guido Rodriguez starts against Poland. If you're 1-0 up or 2-0 up in the last 15, bring him on. But don't start with him, because you end up undermining the fluidity of your own passing idea.
What mental state do you think they're in? They just seem like a team under colossal pressure, and I understand that if you're on the cusp of going out of the World Cup in Game 2 and suddenly Messi scores of all people, that will be a massive release. But even the hour-long celebration in the dressing room afterwards for Game 2 of a World Cup, it all just seems a touch overwrought, no?
Well, because they were, that was a final.
Sure.
I think they're in a very good place now.
Okay.
I think they're thinking Italia 90. Italia 90. Did you come here for the World Cup 8 years ago, Joe?
Yeah.
Right. You may remember the song that the Argentina fans, who just dominated the competition, in the invading Argentine hordes.
Don't sing it. I've just got it out of my head. I swear to God, don't.
Yeah. Well, it was an adaptation of Bad Moon Rising.
Yeah.
The Creedence Clearwater Revival. And the lyrics are all about 1990. They're not about 78, where they won. They're not about 86, where they won with Maradona. They're about 1990, where they lost the first game to Cameroon and had to stage a comeback and fought their way through, all the way through to the final. So they're hoping that the script is 1990 and not the previous World Cup in Asia, 2002, when they arrived as the favourites, didn't play with the fluency that they showed in qualification, lost 1-1-1, last game against European opposition, and 1-1 draw, and they were out in the group phase. So there are similarities with these two campaigns, which are either heartwarming or alarming, depending on which one you choose.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying the football, and we'll talk soon.
Look forward to it. Cheers.
Tim Vickery with us live on The Line. Football Show is brought to you with thanks to Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national football team.
This is News Talk.
Dundeel has the largest range of electric vehicles in Ireland from Ireland's trusted premium car dealerships. That's why you will find Brady's Dublin Mercedes-Benz on Dundeel. Stop by Brady's Dublin Mercedes-Benz showroom on Dundeel today and connect with them for great deals on electric vehicles. Dundeel, for electric vehicle deals to feel great about from all of Ireland's trusted car dealerships.
Turn Black Friday red with the Red Friday sale from Virgin Mobile. Get unlimited data, calls and texts for only €10 a month for 12 months. All with 99.7% coverage across Ireland. Switch in-store or at virginmedia.ie. Virgin Media. Bring on amazing.
SIM-only contract €25 a month after offer. Cancel any time on 30 days' notice. Ends December 1st, 2022. For T's and C's and acceptable usage policy, see virginmobile.ie.
The Institute of Education is now enrolling for its intensive Christmas revision courses for 1st to 6th year students. Classes will be delivered by our exceptional teachers, both online and on site in Leeson Street, Dublin. Students will also receive recordings of their classes, along with the Institute's legendary class notes. Enroll by November 3rd.